Welcome back, everyone. We're going to start transforming our app into an SPA, or single page application. And to do this, we need a template that supports single page navigation. So what I'm envisioning is kind of a floating dashboard here in the middle of the page. We'll have a sidebar with a list of our entries. And then in the main section, we'll show the details of the entry that was clicked on from the sidebar. So let's get started by adding the main structure of our dashboard. To do that, let's head into our index.html.erb file. So we'll go into App, Views, Entries, Index. I'm going to go ahead and close this. Now we can get rid of this H1 altogether. We are going to have to account for the spacing that that element was providing. So let's add that to our navbar. So let's quickly open up our shared and navbar. And we can add a margin bottom -5 to this. And then just for personal taste, I want to change this to BG-white. Okay, now we can close that. Now that we're back in our index.html ERB file, let's add an ID of dashboard to our card here. ID equals, okay. And then I also want to add a class of shadow-small, and this will give it that subtle floating effect. Next, let's change card-body to entries-card. The reason we're doing this is we don't need all that additional padding that comes with the card-body class. And since we're going to need some custom styles, it makes sense to just create our own class here. All right, so now within the entries card, let's create two new divs. The first, we can do div.entries-card __ sidebar. And this is another example of the BEM methodology. Entry-card is our block, and the entries card -- sidebar is the element of the block. All right, and so then we can copy this and then change sidebar to main. All right, and let's drop this down. And here we can take our @entries list and put it right here. Now we're going to be handling the way we check to see if there are any entries available a little bit differently. So for now, we're not going to do the check, and just make sure that you have a couple entries in your database. And so we can completely clear this out. And then in our main area, let's open up some ERB tags, and we will do @entries.first.name. And this is just a placeholder for now. All right, at this point, we can go check this out in the browser. And if we refresh the page, we see the entry list and we see the name of the first entry, but this does not look that great. And that is because we have not added any styles to this yet. So let's go ahead and add some styles. We need to create an entries.scss file and then include that in our UI.scss entry file. Now, before we do that though, in an effort to keep our styles neatly scoped in our entries resource and even more scoped to our index action, I want to add in some classes to our body tag. Rails provides some helper methods to easily find what controller your view is associated with and what view action is being rendered. So in our application.html ERB file, let's add those helper methods. So we'll go to Layouts, Application, and what we can do here on our body tag is do class, and then we're going to open up some ERB tags. And we can do controller_name, and then I'm going to just copy this piece here. And we can do action name. Now let's check this out in the browser real quick. And reload. And if I inspect, and if we look at the body down here, we'll see that we have a class of entries and index. If I were to go to the About page, you'll see that it's our pages controller and our About action. So this will help us scope our CSS really nicely. Let's go back to the home page, close this out, and let's go back into our code. All right, so now in our assets directory and within our style sheets and our UI directory, let's add a new file. So call this entries.scss. Now I'm going to paste in a couple lines of CSS and I'll go over what it's doing. Okay, I'll close this, scroll back up to the top. And so you can see we have everything nested under our entries class here. And now within our dashboard ID, we're targeting the bootstrap card and we're setting the height to 100% view height minus 15 rem to account for the navbar and some additional spacing. So this is our block element of the entries dash card, and we're setting the display to flex, and our overflow will be hidden. Then we have our sidebar section, and that width is going to be 100%, but we're setting the max width to only 25%. Our overflow will be scroll, so there's no scroll here, and because our height of our sidebar is 100%, anything that goes beyond that will be a scroll. We're adding in some padding, some background, a slight border to the right, and we're setting the border radius so that the top left border and the bottom left border have a slight curve to it. And so then we have our main section, and basically what we're saying with Flex Scroll 1 is, the sidebar is 25%, and then we want the main section to take up the rest of the available space there. So if we go ahead and save this, all we have left to do now is to include this in our UI.scss, and we can copy that. Don't forget to put the semicolon there, and add another one there. And then we can add in entries. And after saving this, when we go into the browser, we should see an updated layout. Great, this is exactly what we wanted. So this is great work, everyone. And now that we have our dashboard structure in place, in the next couple lessons, we'll focus on the design for each of these sections, the sidebar and the main section. We'll add in some nice styling so that these names don't look just like links. We'll add in some hover transitions. And I also have a nice trick to easily and dynamically pull the logos of each of the websites that our users will be saving in our database. So there will be, for GitHub, there will be the GitHub logo here and then the name. All right, everyone, great work, and I'll see you in the next lesson.